All right, so I want to introduce, we have 6 students here that will, we have some questions that we're going to ask them, and they will answer them, and then we're going to open it up to general questions for you to ask the students. I'm going to start with Colton. Colton Gray is actually from our Middletown High School. You can see all of his little stats up here. So he just started last year in CCP. He is trying to get a cybersecurity degree here, so he actually, go ahead and sit at the very end. He actually is going to be matriculating and coming here next year to finish his degree and should be done within a year. And then who do we have here? Elizabeth. So Liz started last year. She came in to see me and said, I think I want to do this degree. She has busted her tail to finish and will be graduating with her Associate of Arts degree this spring, along with graduating from high school. And Liz is with Ohio Virtual. So she's been doing online classes before, and now she has been on our campus full-time for last year and this year. Last spring? Was it last spring?
I started full-time in the summer.
In the summer, yeah, we've really worked hard. And she's got a great GPA, 3.939 here, okay? Who's next? Jillian. All right, Jillian. Jillian here is also a homeschool student. She started here, has been going full-time for the last 2 years. She has a 4.0. With us. So, and she is moving on to Franciscan next year to study nursing. And who's next? Isabel. All right, Isabel. She goes to SCPA. She's been a tough one. SCPA, for those of you that don't know, they have a very restricted schedule in order for us to work with them. So Isabel came to me, and she has a lot of AP credit. But she has also worked through this summer and done a lot of online work, but also been on campus. And she is looking to go pre-med. I couldn't list where she's going because, first of all, she doesn't know yet. She's applied to 26 institutions. Can you tell them your top 10?
Okay. Lawrence University, Ohio State, UC, Case Western, the University of Pennsylvania, the University of Chicago, Amherst, Williams. What? Sorry, Vanderbilt.
Okay.
And a lot of others.
Yes. So, yes. And Isabel is the top student at SCPA. So, she has a lot of AP credit that she's also bringing in to go with that CCP credit. Luke. Luke's a homeschool student. Luke has been coming here since 10th grade when he was like this tall. You'll see how tall he is now. So Luke is he is receiving his pre-business degree here and is moving on to Kent State to do at least a major in finance, possible double major with sports management. He has a 3.48 in a very difficult, highly demanding program here. And our last one is Kathleen. So Kathleen has been coming to CCP since, I don't remember, it's been a long time, 9th grade. She was really young, and I've watched her grow through the years. So Kathleen is our first official CCP student that's getting a dual degree. She is getting her degree in sign language here, which is a very difficult degree just for a degree-seeking student. And she also added on the Associate of Arts degree, and she's moving on to Xavier in the fall, and she's very excited about that. And again, great GPA with a very demanding program. All right, we're going to start with, we have a couple questions here. So my first one, at the time that you were ending high school, you've amassed a lot of credit here. All right, so the question is, I want you to talk about the process it was for you to decide, should you leave here with credit or finish out the degree? And how did you decide to make that decision? All right, Isabel?
So I started in 10th grade. I was taking just an English class and a math class, and I wanted to get the credits out of the way at my high school. And then I started taking classes that I was interested in, and I kept doing that until Sue emailed me a week before this fall semester this year and was like, you have enough credits to get a degree, so why don't you do that? So I got the degree. It was kind of like unexpected for me.
Okay, Luke, how about you?
For me, it was basically the same thing. Like I started out just wanting to get the credits out of the way, but then as time went on, I saw how many credits I was getting, and then I found out that I could get a degree. I didn't even know that I could, and then so I was like, why not? I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I mean, I can brag to my siblings now that I got a degree in high school and they didn't. And then so once I found out I could, I was like, that's a good thing to do. So I did it.
Okay, Kathleen?
For me, it started because I wanted to learn a foreign language, so I wanted to learn sign language. I was homeschooled and hadn't started my foreign language program yet, so I chose to come here to take sign language courses and immediately was in love with the language, wanted to learn more, so I continued and hadn't really thought of getting the degree until it came time to start doing the interpreting classes, and at that point is when I decided that I wanted to go for the degree. And the second degree just kind of came along as I started to accumulate credit and realized that I could, and it would knock out a lot of credits for when I went to Xavier for my further education, so I decided to go from there.
All right, our next question talks about support systems. So what support systems were in place here to help you achieve your goal to get this degree, or what were lacking if something's missing? Elizabeth?
So I think the best support system that I had were my teachers. I have kind of an odd learning style. During lecture-heavy classes, I draw in my notebooks. It kind of looks like I'm not paying attention, but every picture that I draw is sort of a visual mnemonic device for me to be able to memorize it. And all of my teachers have been very understanding that I am paying attention, I'm just paying attention in the way that I pay attention. And then one of the other really helpful systems for me has been the clubs. Sort of to come back to everything that students can do as CCP students. I was elected to SGA. I'm an officer at Phi Theta Kappa, which is an honor society. I'm a member of the President's Ambassadors Program, and even if I am in high school, I can still do all of these things, and these are all avenues that are open to me. The only issue that I've ever had has been with being able to get a job here on campus, but it makes sense with federal funding issues. So.
Okay, Jillian?
So I think the biggest thing for me is the advising staff, like Mrs. Kowalski, and you've been such a big help. I know when my parents and I first decided that I was going to do this, we had no clue. We're kind of in the dark about everything, and I was very nervous, and I had no idea what classes I wanted to take and what I needed to take and how things would transfer so I could get my high school and my college degree at the same time. And so we met up with Ms. Kowalski, and she's been so helpful, and all the other staff has been really, we sit down, we meet, a couple times a year in a semester, and she tells me exactly what I need to take and when I need to take it and how to best fit it in my schedule. I think the only thing that's really been lacking, I couldn't really think of anything. Everyone has been super supportive. When I first thought of it, I was like, oh, the teachers, but I think, because when I first started taking the classes, it kind of surprised me that most of them didn't know that I was in high school unless I told them. And at first that kind of made me really nervous because I was like, well, they're not gonna help me and support me. But I think it's kind of good that they don't know unless you tell them, because I was in this and it is my responsibility to reach out to the teachers and let them know if I need help. But I've committed to taking these classes, and it's my responsibility to work hard and get it done. So
Thanks, and that brings me right into my next question, which you didn't know maybe. So a faculty's roster does not identify that the student is a CCP student. They just see that they're a student in their class. So at first the faculty has no idea whether the students in their class are in high school or in college. So tell us about your experience related to that fact, since your teachers didn't know, and even if they did find out, did they treat you any differently, or how did your peers in class treat you since you were in high school? Colton, I'm going to start with you.
When I was taking classes up at the Middletown campus, most of my fellow students were adults, so when I told them that I was actually 17 and taking classes, most of them were really, wow, that's so cool, wow, you're so smart. But when it came to the teachers here and down at the Middletown campus, I don't think any of them really treated me differently for being a high school student. If they found out, they treated me with the same standard that they treated the other students.
Okay. Liz, how about you?
I think it's generally pretty much the same experience. I've gone whole semesters without teachers really ever figuring it out. I have this kind of unfortunate habit of showing up to classes really early. So what that leads to is downtime before class talking to teachers. And so it's usually about halfway through the semester that I figure out, or that I tell them that I am in high school, and none of them they always have to do kind of a double take. But I understand how they treat me before, and I understand how they treat me after, and it's never changed.
Okay.
I mean, I started when I was 14 and I looked it. So I would assume most of my teachers probably knew, but again, like somebody said earlier, being held to the same standards as your adult peers was really empowering for me, because you just have to do your work. You don't have the excuse of being young. It's just on you to do your work and be responsible for yourself, which for me was a really good thing. I think coming from my mom being my teacher, it was helpful for me to become a little bit more responsible and carry myself like an adult.
All right, thanks. So one of the components of our programs here is that you have to have a co-op experience, which is some sort of job or shadowing experience. And there are some challenges with CCP students that we have run into since we've identified students who can graduate with a degree. So I want a couple of you to talk about how we've navigated through that and some of the options that we've given you, and some of like the roadblocks that we've hit with some of it. Okay, Luke, you want to start?
Yeah, so I co-opted at UC. I just shadowed where Sue's husband works. She was able to set me up with the sports administration offices, which was, and I mean, that was really fun. I decided that's what I want to do, like, when I grow up. But something that was hard was finding like the right fit for what type of co-op, because there's like job co-ops, and then there's like special project co-ops where you shadow, and then you have to write a paper on that, and then you have to do different networking projects, and so there's like a lot that goes into that, and I'm a very busy guy, so I did it over the summer, and I had football and work on top of that, so it was hard to fit all that into my schedule, but it ended up working out great. I had a great time, and I learned a lot, and yeah, it was all good.
Okay, Jillian, how about you?
So when I first found out that doing co-op was kind of part of the CCP or the Associate of Arts degree, I was kind of frustrated, because I was like, I'm still in high school and I have to do this, but I kind of talked with the co-op coordinator, and she helped me, and at the time I thought that I wanted to teach theology. I thought that was what I wanted to do, and I was kind of frustrated because I was like, well, there's no option for that at Cincinnati State. But like what Luke said earlier, I did the special project. Miss Dressing, who was the co-op coordinator for the Associate of Arts degree, she worked with me and she set me up, and I kind of job shadowed / volunteered at like a theology retreat with somebody that I knew. And I did it for about a week, and then I wrote a paper and stuff like that. But looking back on it, it kind of backfired almost, because I realized that's not what I wanted to do for my degree, which was actually helpful, I mean, looking back, because if I hadn't done the co-op experience, I think I would have gone through with that and gone into college with the idea that I was teaching that, and then I wouldn't have wanted to do it. But it really helped me it was a good experience, and it really kind of turned me around to see what I actually wanted to do when I graduated here. So.
Okay. All right. If you could influence families or students about whether or not they should do CCP in the future, what advice, suggestions, encouragement, anything would you tell them? All right. Colton?
For my experience with the CCP program, I think the most important thing to me was that my support system was strong. I had my parents who have gone through college pretty much telling me this is how this is supposed to work and this is how this is supposed to work. And then my co-op advisor down at Middletown, Linda, she really helped me, and I think that a strong support could really help a student.
Okay. Isabel?
I think the biggest thing for me was making the time to take the classes, because I stay at school till 5:30 every day, and last year I started at 7, and I don't like to do CCP at school, like on my computer. It just didn't work for me, so I had to make the time to do it at night after school or on the weekends, and making sure that I didn't take too many classes at a time, so I didn't have a life because of it.
Liz?
I think just coordinating with your teachers, it's a really good way to make sure that you actually want to pass the class. I find if I like a teacher, I'm more willing to actually put in extra effort. And coming from an online school, you don't really get that connection if you're talking over a microphone. I am close with my high school teachers, but it's kind of a different experience being here at college and actually being able to take physical classes. It has motivated me to do more, just having that relationship with my teachers.
Okay, great. All right, so those are just some questions to kind of give you guys an overview. We'd like to open it up for questions that you may have to the students. Look at her in the back. I got one in the back. Look at her. She's like, I'm on it.
Real quick before we start, I think you were sitting here when somebody up here asked about transfer of credit. You're all to the point where you're talking to colleges, maybe not deciding yet on the college yet. Have you encountered any of those conversations about how those colleges where you're heading to are receiving your credits and transfer?
So I'm going to Kent State, and when I first visited, they had a presentation, whatever, and they said they fully accept all CCP credits, and so, you know, it depends on the college, like they were saying earlier, on what credits they'll take and what they won't take, and you know, but that's that'll happen no matter where you go and what credits you have. So, you know, and then talking specifically with my advisor, he looked over all of my my transcripts from Cincinnati State, and he saw that I had good enough grades where they would transfer over in full. So.
Luke, I'm going to go off that. Has your advisor identified like how much further you are in the degree? Like, have they said you're starting at junior standing?
Yeah, junior standing, or like, well, I'll be like sophomore spring semester, so yeah.
Okay, right, okay.
Similar experiences? Any other experiences?
Yeah, for me, so I'm going to Franciscan University. It's a private college. It's in Ohio. But for me, like I said earlier, I thought I was going to teach theology for a while. So for the first year, I'd been taking mainly gen eds and English classes and things like that. But then this year, I decided I want to do nursing. So I talked with the transfer specialist at the school, and obviously I couldn't shave off a lot with nursing. She said that all of the ones that I take in like English and math and history, that all transfers. And they haven't given me a specific like ranking, like I'm going to go in as a sophomore or junior, but I'm shaving off, I think it's like 20 plus credit hours from the gen eds.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I really just wanted to have a chance to have them hear from your experiences, just briefly. As Lori mentioned, that question is one of our most common questions, and here in almost any college where I've ever worked, the best information you can get about how anyone else will be taking our college's course would be the college themselves. So we always would encourage students that are exploring, even if they're taking one or two courses, to feel free. If they think they're going to go to Indiana University, feel free to call Indiana University and ask them, how would you take this course? Just let them know it's Cincinnati State Technical and Community College, it's this semester, it's this credit, you'll have course descriptions and syllabi, but it's always an open question. It's always an opportunity to ask.
Yeah, I see you up there still.
This question about your experience here. What do you say to parents and students that are nervous about coming to take classes on campus with adults and all the things that might present issues? What would you say to them to deal with that?
And I want to kind of direct this a little bit towards you two because you started so young. Right, these two started when they were 14 and 15, so they were very young. So can you guys answer that a little bit?
Yeah, for me, coming in at 14, I was very, very nervous about, because I was also homeschooled. I'd never interacted in a classroom setting, period, let alone with a room full of adults. So I came into it very, very nervous, but I really found that just relaxing and trying not to put yourself out there as necessarily a CCP right away, kind of just interacting with your peers, not being so afraid of talking to adults, because right now most of my friends are several years older than I am. I interact with adults on a daily basis, and I feel like my confidence has really grown through that. So just going into it, giving it a shot, talking to the people sitting around you. For my first semester, I sat in a table by myself and just listened to the conversations around me. And I found that once I actually started introducing myself to people, integrating myself into those conversations, I had a much more enjoyable time in the class. So just talk to the person sitting next to you.
Yeah, no, same. I started, I think I was 14, but I was very, very nervous heading in. I didn't know how people were going to look at me or whatever. So starting out, with that mindset, I didn't talk to anybody. Nobody obviously cares enough in college to talk to you, and then but as time went on, you just you get put in groups for discussion during class or whatever, and then you just form friendships as time goes on, and you get to know people, and I mean they're amazing people that go here. They're just normal people who you can be friends with. So yeah.
I think one of the other big perks here is that our largest class size is 20. So if they're taking a class on campus, it's a good student to teacher ratio. And I will say we have a couple small classes that do go up to like 25, but for the most part, every class is capped at 20. So they're not like this little fish in this gigantic pond. We really try to keep it small so that they get that good interaction with the teacher.
As a counselor, I guess I get a lot of questions about the balance of experience, still having that high school experience and experience in college. How is that balance? Like, you play sports, or do you have to give it up, or how does that go?
I'll take that again. But so I was homeschooled, or I still am, and but I'm still able to have a high school experience because they signed a law in my 8th grade year or 7th grade year that homeschool students could play sports in public school. So I had an amazing high school experience overall. I played football 4 years, was captain my senior year, and went to state in discus my junior year. So I had an amazing high school experience, and I was still able to have a good college experience too. And going into college, I'll have the experience and knowledge to be able to manage my own time, because high school students, the teachers manage your time mostly, but in college you have to manage your own time and be on top of that yourself, and so you can definitely get the best of both worlds.
Isabel or Colton, do you have anything to add? Because you two are like in the public school system.
Yeah, other than this year, I've gone to school like all day long. It gave me freedom to take the classes there that I wanted. Like I have all my friends, they're complaining about taking English this year, and I don't have to take English. So that's like one of the upsides to it. But I take physics, chemistry, AP calculus at my school, and I dance there from 1:30 to 5:30 every day. And I still have all my high school friends. I've mostly taken online classes. The only class I took on campus was first year experience last year last semester because it was required. But I still got the time management that Luke was talking about from it.
Do you consider the public school students, do you consider yourselves relatively disciplined as far as academic rigor is concerned relative to your peers?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I wouldn't ask Isabel. She's like, she's unique. So, Colton, answer that question.
Are you referring to my high school peers or college peers?
Yeah,
high school peers. I'd say I'm rather disciplined, yes, but I have some of my friends who also take the CCP course, and they seem to take like gen eds, maybe English and math every semester just to get it out of the way and then still participate in the high school setting, while I, on the other hand, have just decided to go full-time to college. So I'm kind of in the gray area where I don't really know how disciplined they are to how disciplined I am, but maybe I'm more mature in that sense than them.
So for you guys taking your classes that you have and like that you've got your associates, are you guys already communicating with the colleges you plan to go to, or the ones that you're interested in, how those classes are going to apply to your major that you're taking there? I know some of you have already said yes, but specifically it sounds like you're having conversations with you guys, but also on the end of, what advice would you give current students as well, going to, they know what they want to go do at the college level, speaking and talking to advisors of what does this look like when I move to you guys?
For me, I've just recently started talking with the school that I'm absolutely going to. I just recently committed to that school. So I haven't had in-depth conversations about it, but I do know going in as I'm going into a field completely unrelated to the degrees I've got now. So a lot of that the time frame is going to be pretty much the same, a 4-year bachelor's, but a lot of my gen eds are being knocked out of the way, so I've had those conversations. I would say get those conversations started early so that you know what courses you want to start getting out of the way, because for me especially, I'm not a person that enjoys math. So I started having those conversations with advisors early as well about which maths I wanted to take here versus at Xavier to kind of figure out how I wanted to format that. But certainly having those conversations early, I think, is a better idea than what I'm doing right now and waiting until the last minute.
I'm actually going to jump in on that question too. As the parent of multiple CCP kids in multiple colleges now, and one of them was a student athlete, and so he was going through that athletic recruitment process, which is stressful and exciting and wonderful, right? And we were asking, as a parent who happens to know a little bit about CCP, we were asking those questions during those recruitment visits. That's great, you want him, you're gonna give him money, but let's talk credits, right? We were having those conversations pretty early, and he ultimately chose the school that he chose for the reason that he chose, but they took everything. We weren't running into nobody was batting an eye about it. Nobody was even batting an ie about it. Now, but we focused him on general education courses, right? You can't start nursing when you're in high school. That's just not, you can't do that. So his courses were kind of, they were generic, right? Everybody takes English, everybody takes public speaking. So, but we were having those conversations as part of the athletic recruitment process. I have one that started at Mount St. Joe, and now he's back at Cincinnati State because he suddenly figured out he can go to school for free. But he started at MSJ, and those were right off the bat. Those were conversations we were having too, like how will these credits, not only how are they going to transfer, but how are they going to apply? And so when they were talking about money, and he had offers from a lot of places, when we were looking at the bottom line, where are we going to save time and money with what you've already done? And he said, there was a question he had about one of his science courses, and they were like, well, we're not sure. And he said, well, you better figure it out, because I'm not coming here if I've got to repeat that class. So, so as part of that high school visits, and to me, that's part of that, maybe we have a handout that helps those students advocate. What do you do when you're going on college visits? How do you talk about this? Now that we're 6 years in, most colleges are pretty hip to what they're talking about, but how to help those parents have those conversations and students have those conversations when they're on their college visits.
So I guess the second part of that is a lot of us are in here because we're offering CCP classes at our campus, our high school campus. So it sounds like, the experience of off-campus versus like at the high school campus looks pretty different, I would say, with at least advising on that regard, because it just looks different. So are you guys planning to do anything where you're taking that support and putting it into the high school? Like, for example, I've seen, I think it was Sinclair, they came and they did like a first day orientation of maybe you're talking about things like this.
Actually, all of the in-high schools are about to have their own online virtual orientation for all of our students. And so that's another thing that's happening on campus. And so we're creating one for our traditional students, and we're creating one specifically with those in-high school only kids in mind. We recognize that as an opportunity for improvement to help those parents and families and students, feel empowered in what to do next. So you got these credits now. How does that work? Yeah, that works. I can't wait to launch it. Yeah.
Yes, right.
I know Isabel and Elizabeth, you both kind of touched on this, but for any of you who have taken a combination of online and face-to-face courses, I'm just curious if you felt like you were more successful in one or the other. I know that I tend to push the face-to-face courses, but I think I'm just getting old, so I know the online is a lot more popular, so I'm just curious how you felt about the difference.
I'm taking a combination with my schedule to fit it in. I'm taking a combination of on-campus and online, and I find that the on-campus and face-to-face is much more helpful, just because, you don't have that, because I'm taking economics online, which is really hard, and my dad was an economics major, so he's been helping me, which is really lucky. But I would, those kind of classes when you don't have that teacher there to help you and those specific questions, you can email them, but it's not really exactly the same. It has been helpful for some that are easier, like English and stuff like that, but I would definitely say that on campus is easier.
I would disagree. I liked my online class. My in-person class that I took. But I think the stress for me came from not being able to come to class because I have like a really busy schedule, and it was early in the morning, and I live 45 to an hour away, and I was always stressed about getting to class. And then I don't know, I just feel like having the time to do it myself was really helpful. And I think that my professors were really understanding if I had any questions that were like maybe a paragraph email, and they would respond to me really quickly, and that was helpful. That was just my experience.
I'm going to say Kathleen was actually in my online class. I was her teacher too. And so she had a wonderful experience.
This is as much for you as it is for the panel. Do you have a formal way of staying in touch with students after they're out to find out how well prepared did you feel? How did the work that you did here, how did it prepare you for the road ahead?
We haven't as of yet, but that is something that we've been talking about. One of the things, for example, we're talking about with the when the students apply to the college, a lot of times they use their Moeller address, or they use their Fairfield address, or their Talawanda address, which goes away. So our ability to reach out to their personal email address, it becomes eliminated once they've graduated from high school, and their CCP or their Cincinnati State email would kind of go away too. And so we're talking about how maybe we can change that as well, and say when you're applying, make sure you use a personal, not your school, so that we can do a better job of that outreach after the fact. But we hear from them a lot. We hear from students that have gone on. They're like, "Hey, Miss Lori, you helped me in this class or that class or whatever." So.
This particular group will be graduating college at the time they're graduating high school. So as alums from the college, they'll get a alumni survey that happens right after graduation survey and alumni survey. But even that survey isn't customized to a former CCP student. And so there are lots of opportunities to ask those questions about what do we do now and how does it work later on.
Yes, the young people. For those of you who took classes online as well as with an instructor in your home school, what was the learning curve for you getting used to using Blackboard and the Cincinnati State website and communicating with an online teacher? Did you feel needy at first? Were you missing deadlines? How did you transition into that particular platform?
So I've always gone to high school online, so I feel like the learning curve was mainly in reaching out, because online high school is very independent, and so I did kind of feel needy because I never had a teacher that I could go up to at the end of class and say, "Hey, I have a question." So I did kind of feel like I was bothering teachers, but when they were always so happy to help me, it kind of took away that stress, and it did help me kind of adjust. Also, I found that there's less homework in college than there is in my high school, which was definitely unexpected, and that also kind of helped me adjust with the learning curve.
I was going to say, how about if one of you guys who were in high school, not homeschooled, Isabella or Colton, can you answer that for her? Since you, in SCPA, do you do a lot of computer-based stuff at SCPA?
Yeah, no, kind of.
Not really?
Yeah.
So how was your transition to, especially because you went all online pretty much.
Yeah.
How was your transition to that compared to being in the classroom all the time?
It was really hard at first because if I don't open my laptop, I don't have to do it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, well, if I don't open my laptop, then I'm not gonna have to do my schoolwork, and I don't have to look at my grade, and I don't have to see what I missed. But then I realized, oh crap, it's there and it's gonna go on my transcript now because I decided to take these classes, and that's what they told me was gonna happen. So I guess I just had to, in getting myself acclimated to Blackboard, I feel like that part wasn't very hard. It was just to to push myself to check it every day and make sure that I wasn't missing announcements.
Deadlines. I mean, is it a collaborative teacher who does an online, or does a course with an online platform, but even in our high school, that idea of young people at your age not having to remind them every day, did you check your email? Well, I missed this, can I have an extension? You didn't look at your calendar. You didn't do this, you know. It can be a push and a pull, and I wasn't sure how your experience was when you didn't have a human being other than your internet connection with your online professor, how long it took you to get in the swing of things.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you that any student who takes a class online here, like that's not in the high school, they have to go through an orientation, and this is something we talk about. So we talk about the independence, we talk about, you know, a web class and how it works here, and the expectations, and we talk about deadlines, especially because deadlines here are deadlines. There's not, oh, we'll give you another week. It's a 0 if it's not turned in at 11:59 on Sunday. So we really hit home hard. We hit that hard because it's really important. A 0 is a huge grade to accept into the course. So we really, and that's why if students, while they're taking classes in your high school, we do say if they're going to take an online class with us, they have to come here because there are different rules. You know, you do see the student every day in the classroom usually, so you can remind them. They do not have that with online, even on campus. So anyone who does online or on campus, we go over that stuff and hit it hard.
Sorry, one more follow-up. How was the learning curve or the adjustment to, you mentioned not as much homework, not as much support, when you only had 2 or 3 quizzes, 2 exams, and that's your grade, as opposed to participation in classwork and all the other. Did you feel you eased into that, or obviously your GPA didn't suffer, so you must have found a strategy. I guess I'm wondering what it was like finding your niche.
I'm like my father. I would rather have one test that determines my grade for the whole class than a week of busy work. So I feel like for me it was just a natural adjustment. I don't know about anyone else.
If I were to say I'm taking a class currently where 6 weeks into the semester I only have 3 grades, and that's really affecting me right now because it's not a very high grade. But in all my other classes, having that busy work to kind of cushion if I get like a 60 on a test, it doesn't impact me so much. I like that more than I do a class that will give me 2 assignments for the entire semester. So going from my previous semester where I had a ton of busy work to cushion my grade to now where one of my classes I do not have any work to cushion it. I have to focus more on studying for those tests or making sure that that assignment is pretty much perfect to the standard or rubric.
By the way, as far as the tools go for online support, we have an online course orientation workshop. So for any Cincinnati State student that's taking a first online course, we try to route them to our preparatory online course. It's done online and it replicates the tools that students would be doing in most any of our online courses. For our high school students, we really try to route students to that because they usually don't have any prior college experience. They don't have any normal college, traditional college format experience. And so we see that ratcheted up here in terms of making sure high school students that are CCP students taking their first online course have a general sense of what the tools are. A real technical issue, though, is sometimes with our CCP students across the board, probably not so much in this group, schools that issue devices at school sometimes have technical issues to make sure they can access college devices. That's a whole different conversation, but we have, because we're aware of it and can't necessarily anticipate every scenario that might come up. That's another checkpoint that we try to work with students, particularly schools that are putting together online course solutions for groups of students.
One last one.
For those of you who have taken AP courses, like big difference, your feelings about the difference between a college credit plus class versus
The question was the difference between AP and CCP, what, their college courses, asking about their differences. Yes, no.
I feel like AP, in my opinion, was a little bit more difficult. I guess from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, since it's a full year class, I struggle to remember the stuff that they teach in September. But with CCP, it's more condensed, and it is hard because it's like you're learning a bunch of different topics in the same week and then over and over again until your final. But I personally like having everything condensed so I can study it and retain it before I have to take the final. Yeah, and I guess that's all that I can say on it.
Okay. Do any of the rest of you have AP credit? Do you?
I took a little bit, yeah. I would kind of say the same thing. I mean, I think AP is still very like high school level. I mean, it's definitely harder, but I think they review more and they take a longer time, and you have a lot more work to do with it. Whereas CCP was more, it's just you're in college. I mean, it's a college class, and they don't give you as much work, and they kind of expect you to kind of do everything on your own and carry your own weight with it. So.
Real quick, this happened last year. Somebody in the audience realized that almost all the feedback from the audience was good things that were happening, positive things that occurred, how I benefited from CCP. Just real quick, one of the things that we're doing here is trying to find out where areas of improvement are. What of the not so good? What of the not so good? What would you suggest improve? Any negative experiences that you had that you feel could have been avoided that we might be able to anticipate and insert improvements, either at the college side or the relationship side with your partner schools? Any at all?
I have one thing. A few of my teachers have, I guess, almost criticized me for taking CCP, and just made me feel that it was the wrong decision because.
A few of your high school teachers?
Yes. And I guess like asking me if I was going to stop after getting this degree or I wasn't going to go on and do something else, which isn't true. I plan on moving somewhere else and going to a different, like another college after I get my degree here. But I guess the negative feedback kind of discouraged me. I didn't stop because I thought it was a good idea to take the classes and get the degree, but I guess that negative, like, if it was something that I decided and I discussed with my parents and they were supportive of me, and I think that just kind of, I guess, upset me in doing something that I thought was an achievement for myself.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for coming in.